Today, I want to talk about the dangers I've noticed of showing too much grace. So, for starters, the grace begins to somehow be disguised or hidden as forgiveness. And for some part of our brain, it signals, hey, this means strength, because it means if I can forgive them, that means I am strong. It tells our brain that I am choosing to forgive somebody, which this is not what the old past version of myself has done. So this means I have grown. This means I gain the power back. Instead of holding so much resentment, instead of texting in this long, hateful paragraph, I forgive you. That means I've grown. That means I have more strength. But personally, I find myself always choosing forgiving over forgetting, because my mind, anyways, whenever it comes to big traumas, it doesn't like to remember the trauma. It doesn't like to grasp onto even these childhood things that have happened. It doesn't like to remember all those things. My mind blocks out a lot of things anyways. So I call it me showing grace, but part of me already blocked out the traumas and the harmful things that you have done to bring me pain anyway. So somehow and sometimes it looks like saying it's okay even when I'm hurt, even putting my feelings at the forefront, so then that way you don't feel disrespected or you don't feel like I'm putting you down in some kind of way. So I'm saying I'm okay when my feelings are hurt, when my heart is basically broken, because I'm feeling empathy constantly. I can't stop myself from feeling so much empathy because I know what it's like to constantly mess up. I'm constantly putting myself in other people's shoes when they don't even care to put themselves in mine. They don't care to think what I'm thinking. They don't care to kind of look at what's happened in my childhood, if I even care to share that, because I don't like sharing anything at all sometimes. So I'll look at everybody's patterns and what they've gone through in their childhood, and I'll start to understand them. But the harmful part about understanding people is when you do it too much, you will start to try and understand people more than they care to understand themselves. And when you are just constantly, perpetually, always doing that, it is truly harmful, because you will find yourself always trying to change somebody, and you're find yourself always trying to give people solutions, but they didn't ask for anything to be fixed. And if they did want something to be fixed, majority of the time they would put it in themselves to do that. But when you always see the good in people, or you always see people not for their patterns but what they could be, you're seeing them for now, their potential, you are now never holding them accountable, because you cannot help to see their point of view, because now you're always putting yourself in their shoes, that your boundaries no longer exist because you understand. But if you were to do that, they would never understand you. If I were to go and do the things that you have done, I would be done for, because you wouldn't go for that. But sometimes our boundaries begin to just be dismissed because we call ourselves loving somebody and understanding them, or just showing this love that's unconditional. But it's conditional when it comes to them loving you. It's interesting because you always want to understand others' hurt more than you even try to process your own. So you're no longer processing your own feelings, but you're understanding theirs. Even if they don't care to understand theirs, if they just had a whole emotional tantrum breakout, you're trying to process that. You're trying to look deeper into that and understand what has happened, what caused this to happen, what has happened in their past that this has become a pattern. This is a thing, like this lash out is happening now. But they're not caring enough to try to understand that about themselves. So it's very, very, very dangerous to do it, because you lead yourself into this emotional burnout, guys. I lead myself into this emotional burnout where I'm continuously just giving more understanding and patience than I've ever received. So it's not like I'm looking for it, but at the same time, I just experience this deep emotional and even physical, psychological, just not even only abandonment, but just exhaustion. because I find myself always, like I said, just you're always understanding somebody. So in the midst of you understanding everybody, you always feel misunderstood because you feel like nobody is there to understand you. Nobody is here understanding me. Nobody's understanding me or dissecting what has caused me to be like this, why my responses are the way I am, why I'm so graceful, why I'm so understanding, why I've forgiven this person, why I can still forgive them. Nobody takes the time to understand that, or at least that's how it feels, because I'm always taking the time to understand everybody else, and most of the time it's not the right people, right? Because when you do this, it's usually to people who keep on like disrespecting or disrespecting your boundaries. So you're just teaching others that your boundaries are negotiable, that in the beginning you're telling them, hey, I don't want you to do this, I don't want you to, I really don't like this, and then they keep doing it. And in the midst of you keep on repeating it, you're understanding, okay, maybe this is why. Maybe it was a mistake. But it's so hard, because even your discernment, you're even disrespecting that. Because you're putting so much faith in people that you're disrespecting your own discernment. You know in your Holy Spirit, in your intuition, that it's wrong, that this person is not for you, that they are disrespecting you and your boundaries, but you call yourself loving them. Okay, so you're just teaching others, like I said, your boundaries are negotiable because you understand parts of them that they don't care to take the time to understand themselves. So in the process of that, your needs are not only minimized, but they're disregarded. You're showing them that your limits are now flexible, that, hey, she'll crash out today, but she'll be back by Monday. Hey, bro, like, you know how she is. You know how he gets. Like, he'll forgive me. We'll be right back. Like, your friends are always telling y'all will be right back. You'll forgive that friend. Like, you guys are always hanging out. So now your limits are flexible. When you thought that crash out was your limit and you went back the other 3 times, you're showing them that, hey, that's just what he does. That's just what she does. That's just how she acts sometimes. So I can do these things. It's almost like you're enabling their behavior by showing them each and every time you will come back, and you will always meet them with the same amount of grace, even when they meet you with disrespect and disregard. So it's like I keep saying it's okay, and like whenever I say it's okay, they feel like they are enabled and they are entitled to repeat these harmful actions and just these manipulative behaviors, because at some point you're showing them this is exactly what I accept, because staying equals exception, right? And staying will show them, hey, this is what I want. Even if you're saying this is not what I want, this is not, this is not what I came here for. Even if those boundaries were set 7, 8, 10 months ago, 2 years ago, you're showing them that they are negotiable. And now, instead of strong, you are showing them that, hey, I'm not strong. Now I'm just naive. Now you can just say all these things to me, and now you can just show me that you're not the person that I thought you were, but I'll still look at you that way. To hear me when I say this, the right ones will not stab you in order to prove that you are strong. And the right one won't make you bleed in order to prove you are kind. People know your character, and they'll usually know that sometimes even before the first conversation. People know. And the harmful part about that is people, especially these manipulative, like just narcissistic people, they will know when they can push you to your limits and still surpass them. They will know when they can step on you like a doormat. So you telling them about all these times that you've forgiven, all these times that that you've just been such a nice and kind person, or just sometimes people are even able to read you, they will know that, hey, I can at least try to get past this. It's not like you're playing a mind game. Don't do a mind game, but it's simply how some of these people, just manipulative traits, will immediately look at you, because that's how at this point their brain has been wired, and it's to look at people for what they can get out of them, for how far they can push them, for the traits that might seem for some reason just helpful to them, even if it destroys the other person. And in return, us graceful people get destroyed at some point. And some point by, I mean a lot, usually a lot. You're gonna hear me during any part of this video. Hear me here. Your grace should be met with change and not convenience. Your boundaries should not be neglected or corrupted at the sake of someone else's comfortability, because it doesn't even make sense. Why am I able to just sit here and be hurt and you stay comfortable in being a bad person or a disrespectful person towards me? You're able to stay the same and avoid change by staying comfortable, while I stay and get hurt for you to stay the same because it seems to be easier. It doesn't make sense, because if I put forth all this change and to change myself, even to be this person that's still loving you, and to changing myself from the person that I was before I met you, how come you can be with me and stay the same? Most of the time that's because, like I said, when you stay with somebody, you're showing them that is exactly what you accept. You can't stay with somebody or get with somebody and expect to change them, because most of the time, yes, people will change over time, but you specifically being with them will not change them. And I find myself giving others answers constantly, just answers they didn't ask the questions. They don't want to know the answers. They don't want this advice. They're not seeking answers on why they are the way they are, or how to fix these toxic things that they do. They're comfortable. So I don't just give them, like answers in the forms of advice, but just by looking so deeply into the bad things that have happened in their life and have happened to them, that I notice their patterns before they do. So in return of me thinking that I understand someone so much by all these things that they've told me and all these things that they've gone through and all these patterns that I've noticed, all the red flags somehow turn yellow, which really seem green because they're not too red yet. They're not too red to leave, because when you believe everyone can change because you have changed, you begin to not see them for who they are and the things that they're doing to you. Because I believe everyone can change. I believe everyone can 100% change. You may not be the same person that you were a couple months ago, but what hurt me the absolute most is when I opened my eyes to realize I am not the person that everyone will change for. At least not during, and at least not while they experience me. It might be after the friendship or after the relationship, or after things have ended. But I know by me staying in this toxic situation, or this manipulative, or just like roller coaster of a situation, that I'm not gonna change them. And I can change them after. I know that, I'm not gonna say like I just change people's lives, but I do have an impact on people. And the thing is that I have an impact, but it takes for people to lose me most of the time for me to have that big impact on them, because for so long you would just stick around and stick around and stick around and show them this is your standards, this is your boundaries. They are just constantly just belittled because you're staying with something that didn't even align with what you wanted in the first place. But you call yourself staying, once again, out of love. And what also hurts is always me, or whoever, just being the person that got away, or the one that was always so gentle and strong, because it takes a toll, because you realize that they never treated you right to begin with. A lot of people will go and say that you're so soft and you're so strong, but they had to cross all your boundaries. You had to put up these walls after, and everything had to end. They had to just disrespect, belittle. They had to mistreat you in order for them to come back and be like, you know what, you're the strongest person I knew. But they say that because they hurt you. So it's like, it's so confusing at some point, because I'm the strongest person you knew. But you're saying that because all the hurt that you put me through. So why do I have to be so strong? Why couldn't you just be good to me? That way I could be in my soft, my feminine element. It doesn't make sense. Why did you have to mistreat me for you to come back months later and say, you're so strong though? It took you to stab me in my back, to see me bleed, for you to realize I was strong. That's not love. That's you simply mistreating me. That's you just staying comfortable with the person that you are. That's you staying comfortable with the ways that you've grown into. Instead of seeking change, you want to stay the same because it's benefited you. Because people have stayed because your lies they seem like they've owned up somehow. It seems like you've owned up to who you were, or the person that you portrayed. So it's weird because people will tell you how good of a person you are after treating you so badly. So after you showing all this grace, they will be like, you are so graceful. I did treat you so bad. Yeah, you did. You 100% did. So then that's when you have to start looking at yourself at some point, because it really does hurt, and it takes a toll. It gets very exhausting having to leave someone in the past for them to realize you're a good person. It hurts. But what hurt me more than leaving people that consistently just constantly hurt me is it hurt me worse sticking around. It hurt me worse when I stuck with that friendship, that relationship. I would think that me just being around would benefit them, that it would help them. But it hurt me because me seeing that me sticking around would never make them change. It was enabling them. It was showing them that I'm built for you hurting me. I'm built for your comfortability. I'm built for being belittled and being betrayed for your sake. Because you still get everything in return. You still get all the love. You still get all the advice, all the care, all the grace. You still get everything in the world that you got in the beginning, even though you're not that person that you portrayed in the beginning anyway. So it's this mind game at this point. And it's crazy because people who knew I was a good person, people who knew I was a good person, brought out the worst in me for their enjoyment. So it did bring me to change. It's bring me to this point where I have to overuse some of my discernment because people just misused all the love that I had for them. So at some point you do want to sit down and almost withhold your love, but part of you wanting to withhold your love, you'll sit there and realize that, at least for me, that doesn't make me feel better. I feel no better withholding my love and not dishing it out. I don't feel any better not telling a waitress, thank you, hope you have a good day. I don't feel any better being mean or being hateful or not giving all the love that I know I can give. I feel worse. I don't feel any better withholding my love, but at some point of just being so misused and mistreated, you do want to sit down and become numb and shut off that part of your brain that feels everything. Because you felt everything for so long and you think that you understand everybody so much. But again, you just feel misunderstood. You feel like no one understands you. And that comes from you thinking that you can analyze and understand everybody. So, people who knew I was a good person brought out the worst in me for their enjoyment. And then when they brought out the worst, what the crazy thing is, and I'm sure other people can relate, they will point their fingers at you and be like, I told you so. In that moment, they'll be like, I told you so. I told you, like, you're mean, like but they'll bring you to such a breaking point that you didn't even know that you were capable of. And it'll take months. It'll take just repeated behaviors of this thing for them to just look at you and be like, I told you you're a bad person. It's crazy. So it's come to a point where I'm constantly just giving grace, but now I'm noticing that none has been given back. I'm noticing that whenever it came to such a breaking point, just months later of build up, that they'll point at you and be like, I told you so. I look, like, point at their friends like, look now. But it's like, like that's not who I am. I don't even recognize that part of myself. So just constantly giving that grace for none to be given back, but also showing so much grace that at some point I've stopped looking for it in return anyways. It's not like I'm giving all these forgiveness passes. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna do this back. No, I realized that a lot of people, like if they were put into my shoes and I did that to them, it would not be forgiven. And not to say that I want to do that. I don't want to get back. I don't want to do all these things. I have this discernment now from these situations to where, like I'm not putting up with it, but just going through this and being able to speak to others, I guess the wisdom from being naive to these things, from just being like, from thinking I was strong and thinking I was graceful to just completely being naive to disrespecting my own self-worth, my own boundaries, because I think that I can show grace to people. I think that they can just easily be forgiven, that they don't have to, change, that I can, enable them. And I didn't see it as enabling in the moment. And I didn't see that I wasn't getting any grace back in the moment because I was so busy on looking at other people. I was never looking in the mirror. I was never, and unless it was to analyze myself and to really see what was wrong, I was never, like focusing on me. I was always analyzing everybody else and trying to help them so much that it harmed me. So my grace, just showing all this grace, and I keep saying the word grace, but my grace turned into a free rehab. But it was weird because it was one where my unwavering love became to enable all the drug use. It became a free rehab to where you can stay in the rehab and still do the drugs and still leave a drug addict. Like I thought I was helping. I genuinely thought I was helping, but I was enabling. I kept on showing so much love that they felt entitled to staying the same way and to hurting me. So it became, like these situations, they became all bad. I always became, just down in the end because, I told myself that I was strong for forgiving them, but in the midst of forgiving them, I thought that meant that they had to have access in my life. But they don't. Forgiveness does not mean access. I recommend y'all to watch my forgiveness video as well. Forgiveness does not mean access. That's something I had to learn. But after seeing and realizing all these things, I've seen that everyone would, like they would put their traumas onto me, and while I give solutions and I'll give, all these answers that they don't care to use or to look at or, investigate or analyze within themselves, it always explodes. But whenever everything just goes all bad, it explodes before they learn how to fix it. And so it leads to this moment of destruction where I guess we're both kind of confused, to where, they come back months later and they're like, hey, like you were very good, you were a very nice person, you were very loving, like I don't know why I did that, but you did it. At some point we have to look at ourselves like, you did it because I allowed you to. You should have never had that access to me anyways. I should have noticed the first 3 times that you did something that this is not for me, but we disrespect our discernment in the words of grace or love. Even when that Holy Spirit's telling us this is not for you, get away, it's not made for you. We want to tell us, but it is, because I can change it. Because we start seeing something from such a different perspective instead of our own. You start seeing it from everybody else's, from that other person's perspective, so much to try to understand them that we're not even understanding the reality of things. And sometimes, speaking of explosion, sometimes before you try to stop the bleed, in order to stop the bleed, you have to know how. You have to really sometimes just dig deep. And hopefully this video helps on anybody who is caught in forgiveness and thinking that forgiveness means access, or caught into being grace. Because I'm that friend, my friends be like, you show way too much grace. Like, you forgive way too many people. But it's like, I'm to the point where I do forgive everybody. Like, I believe everybody can change, but that does not mean access anymore. I feel like that's a lot of things, or that's a big thing that my friends or like people who have known me will get confused about now, is my forgiveness does not mean access, and me saying that you will change does not mean that you will change with me. I hope that my experience within your life will provoke you to change into a better person, not negatively, but that does not mean that you will change with me. That does not mean that you will gain this access to me again when you've already misused it and mistreated me. So, yeah, in order to stop the bleed, you have to know how. Hey, am I talking to you or to me? I don't know, guys. I don't know. Hopefully this helped. Mwah.